How friends, welcome to the channel, Bob here. And a few people have asked me what I thought of Pantheon, generally maybe, and like with the new stream coming up. So what you're looking at the moment is kind of footage from the most recent stream that they did. Yeah, and I thought I would just put a video together telling you, yeah, how I think it's looking. Who cares really, but here it goes. I've actually made a list of points to try and keep myself on track as much as possible. So hopefully I don't ramble or sidetrack myself too much. I think the first thing obviously is the looking at it, because that's the first impression that we get. It seems very generic to me personally. I think at the beginning of the video they said it's kind of like a new look that's currently gone in. Yeah, it looks very generic. If someone said to me, what game are you looking at, I would say, well, it kind of looks like someone's trying to remake an Elder Scrolls game with a retro look, but that's fine. These things can change, and I mean it's funny because looking at the website now and reading some stuff, I'm going to be probably saying Classic EverQuest a lot, but I'm not actually sure if that's probably the correct comparison anymore. Because I'm not really, it doesn't seem to me that is now what they're going for. There seems to have been a development shift. But I will say that from a character point of view, from a design point of view, from what I'm looking at, it feels very generic at the moment. And it kind of looks a lot like, just many MMOs that are currently in development, essentially. So yeah, I mean, maybe it will develop some character and some more visual design, its own, maybe it will develop its own look at some point. These things can change obviously, but at the moment I think it looks very generic. The next point is the perception system, and this is quite interesting. While this particular part of the video was going on the stream, I was watching the chat a bit, and there were people were saying, well look, people that like Classic EverQuest, people that play P99, etc., whatever, they don't want to read this. They don't want to be in a dungeon crawl and then have to stop and read this, read narrative, questing. And I think that's probably true. That's not to say that those people don't like questing in RPGs or narrative, but you play EverQuest for a certain gameplay experience. And I think this is one of the things that kind of shows that that's probably not what we're going to get. And maybe that's the point, But it wasn't so long ago in videos, when the videos that Brad was in, where the developers were getting questions about Classic EverQuest, and the feeling or the vibe they were giving off was, oh yeah, we love Classic EverQuest. That's kind of what we're going for. Whereas this video was very different. And I would never, as I said before, if someone said to me, what are you looking at? I never would have said a successor, even a spiritual one, to Classic EverQuest. It just doesn't look as though it's kind of going along those lines. The thing to remember is that they did call this an evaluation build, which they've put together to show parties who may be interested in investing in the game. But that what they've called it is kind of irrelevant, because if you're showing investors want to know what they're investing in, and this is what they're investing in. This is the type of game that they're investing in, and this was a very heavily narrated video for a reason. But I can't imagine that this is the only bit like this, and they've just done this to try and entice people in to giving them money. That wouldn't seem morally correct. For a start, because at some point down the line, people are going to say, well look, you showed us this evaluation build, where's that? That's what I put my money into. So even though they're calling this evaluation build, I'm pretty sure that this will make up a fair part of the game. So the perception system I really like. I like narrative, I like questing. I still play a lot of old retro MMOs with a lot of dialogue to read. But I think the issue here again, and it's going to come up as we go through the list, is that this is not EverQuest. This is not what people play Classic EverQuest for. And some people did point that out in the chat, but it was kind of overlooked, unsurprisingly. So yeah, so the perception system looks great, looks interesting, but yeah, it's. I think we're coming further away from maybe what they were talking about, maybe what they were saying the game was going to be, even only a year ago when Brad was doing some videos. I'm looking at the toolbar there. The other thing that I want to move on to is skills, and again, this is a huge departure from EverQuest. You know, I think the reason that when you went into a dungeon in a group in EverQuest, I think the reason that it worked was that the classes all had defined roles, and after some experience of grouping, people knew what to expect. They knew what those roles were. Some people might call that kind of like basic design, but I think the only reason that we got those dungeon experiences in EverQuest, those encounter experiences with mobs, because the roles were defined, and yeah, and you looked around at your party and you kind of knew what to expect. Whereas this design seems very different. I'm looking at this and thinking this looks like Elder Scrolls Online or any other MMO really that's currently going on at the moment. So what I mean by that is like the rogue is being played here at the moment, and there's quite a lot of passive skills. So you've got very similar passive skills that you were seeing in other MMOs. So if your health reaches 20%, this thing goes down by 20% or up by a percentage, or if your character is in this state, this happens, or if your character is in that state, this happens, blah, blah, blah. And that is moving very far away from the EverQuest Classic class system. And again, like with all of these points, there's nothing wrong with what they're doing, but it's clear. It seems clear to me that they're coming away from that classic EverQuest design. You know, this is just very different. You know, if you get into a group and you're with a rogue, you're probably not going to know what's going to be going on with the class and the character, because it seems as though states change depending on what level their health is and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. And I just think that complicates. Maybe people think the classic EverQuest design was too basic. You know, they don't want their warrior or shadow knight to just tank. You know, they don't want their rogue to just backstab. And I can understand that up until the point where you say you're looking for a classic EverQuest experience, because clearly you're not really, because that's not what the classes are going to give you in an encounter, because of the differences. And I'm not saying that other classes shouldn't be able to do certain other things. You know, there were classes in EverQuest, classic EverQuest, that overlapped. But the skill system for me again seems to be coming quite a way away from what I assumed was going to be the original aim. They talked a bit about corpse recovery. Apparently, at the moment, you spawn with all your equipment that you're wearing. You still have to recover your corpse. I think you need to get items from your corpse and gold and stuff, but that feels to me as though corpse recovery is going to become a non-issue, nowhere near like it, not even remotely approaching what it was in EverQuest. Because for me personally, before I went into a dungeon, I would just deposit my stuff in the bank, and whatever I picked up on the way, if it was a few platinum, I lost it, not a problem. If I had to go back for something, I'd go back for it, you know, so that's a bit of a thing. But again, you know, opening barrels and finding bits of food, and, you know, opening every barrel and chest and box and finding bananas and potatoes and lettuce, you know, again, just feels very generic Elder Scrolls. It was funny because at one point the streamer said it kind of feels a bit like Morrowind, but then didn't really challenge them on it. And when I'm saying challenge, I don't mean like, oh, Morrowind lol or generic lol, you know, kind of thing. You know, that the whole all of the footage and streams so far are just fluff pieces, really. And yeah, and you know, you don't want someone saying all vaporware or being rude, but you kind of expect some challenge, you know. But when the streamer is like opening up a fairly generic looking skill tree and he's going, oh wow, you know, then I kind of can't take it seriously, really. You know, I mean at that point, looking at it and saying this feels a bit like Morrowind, that would have been a good point to ask some questions. So, look, what are you going for? Are you? It feels as though the game is now more narrative driven. Is that going to be the case? Are we kind of moving away from maybe what we were doing before? That seems like a reasonable question to ask, but it was just all fluff, essentially. Looking at even the videos, I kind of looked at a video just 6 months ago as well, and they were talking about hand holding and orientation and not wanting to hand hold. Whereas I think in this particular stream, 6 months later, there seems to be quite a lot of hand holding. They're also talking about heavy narrative and not wanting the game to be heavy narratively driven. Again, in this video, that also seems to be the case, so it will be quite interesting. So again, that's another point where I'm quite confused now as to what they're going for. It's interesting as well. I mean, all the things like look and difficulty can all be balanced, but I was watching a video of someone. Again, this video was about 6 months ago, of one of the developers going for a starter area, just showing the starter experience, and he was level 1 fighting level 2 mobs, and he was finishing the fight with full health, which again, felt quite weird watching it. As someone who's kind of still playing on P99, we all know that if you start off with a new character and you're untwinked and you go up to a level 2 mob, that mob will crush you into the ground, then laugh at you, pick you up and crush you back into the ground again, then laugh at you and carry your corpse to the gate, chuck it in front of the guards and laugh at you, and then run off. That's so. Again, all these things can be balanced and changed. I'm not saying that that's how it's going to finish up, but I kind of feel that I wouldn't be too surprised if that is where the difficulty is kind of being aimed, maybe at the start anyway. Maybe they're looking to introduce new players a bit more gently. And I guess that's kind of where we all come, where it's all leading, is that it feels as though the game is going for a more standard feel from an MMO that we have, in over the last kind of, I guess, 15 years since EQ Classic stopped being the game that it started out as. Even EverQuest changed itself, revamped itself as expansions came out. And I'm really not saying that the game looks bad, because I think that's kind of like a fanboy reaction. Oh, you don't like the game. That's not the point. Like, I would actually play the pants off Pantheon, because I like RPGs, I like MMOs, I like MMORPGs, I like story-driven RPGs, I like lots of narrative, I like lots of reading and stuff like that. So I'll play the game, and it looks like I really enjoy it. But I don't think it's going to be the game that I was hoping it would be, and that would pretty much be classic EverQuest, but maybe polished up a bit with some new visuals, like keeping the the horizontal level design for climbing, all those new things, but I just personally feel that it's come quite a way away from what I was hoping for. And I think what the developers were initially giving you an impression of, well, what they were going for. I'm not sure if that's since some of this seems to have happened since Brad's passed. I'm not sure if he was driving the design at the time, and they've now thought to themselves, we need to try to make ourselves appeal to more people. And it's funny because when you look at streams from a while ago, the developers are asking questions about how difficult the game is and its difficulty balanced with classic EverQuest and stuff, and everyone was laughing and patting themselves on the back and saying, oh yeah, this is what we want. All the fandom was saying, yeah, this is what I've been waiting for like 20 years, blah blah blah. And actually, when you look at it now, you've got the fandom saying, oh well, they've got to try and appeal to more people, and actually thinking about it, classic EverQuest was a bit unforgiving, and that's not what we want. That dynamic is quite weird. I guess it's what you call a classic example of like fanboyism, where basically the the fans who are still following the game are posting on the forums and are hardcore about it. I basically just tell the developers what they want to hear. You know, that game we was making, we've kind of changed it. Oh, hurrah, great, yeah. But we're a bit concerned. But you said before that you wanted a different type of game. No, whatever you want to do, you know. And obviously the developers can do whatever they want to do. That's not a problem. It's their game. They're spending their money that they've been given however they like. But for me personally, this is not the game that I was expecting or hoping for. It seems to have moved away from what they were, you know, what they were implying the game was going to be. Even only up until like 6 months to a year ago. Maybe they will find a perfect balance, you know. And you know, maybe what you'll find that you've got a lot of narrative within the world and in cities and certain areas, but hopefully the dungeons will retain that kind of, you know, EverQuest classic gameplay. When you're going through a dungeon crawl, it will feel like it's retaining that difficulty, that sense of danger, where you could literally one pull and you could die. It doesn't look like it in this particular footage, but you know. This footage could be from anywhere, you know, for any dungeon. It looks like it might be a starter area. I'm not sure. Yeah, so that's it. You know, it's I'm certainly not saying that the game looks bad. You know, it looks like a game that I will play a lot when it comes out. But it doesn't seem as though it's what I was hoping for. You know, and as I said before, if you said to me like, "What are you watching?" I would say, "Well, it looks like I'm watching someone's trying to recreate Elder Scrolls Online, but with a cheaper visual look." It's maybe that's slightly harsh because it does still obviously, you know, anyone who's played Elder Scrolls Online, you know that you run into a dungeon, round up 1,000 mobs and burn them down. This is obviously not that, but many aspects of the game, give me that sort of vibe. But yeah, it's a game that I'll be playing, and it's a game that I'm sure I'll enjoy a lot if it ever comes out. You know, that's the other issue. It was interesting that they said that they recently got some new investment, and that allowed them to create this evaluation, zone or experience, so they then could show other investors to get more money. And that's a bit worrying because that means that it kind of implies that they couldn't have created this without that injection of money. So that's a bit worrying with regards to finances. I know they just employed a couple of people, and I think they were talking about the new investment recently was quite big. But if they've had to wait for that investment to do this, then it does. It's interesting. Like I was watching an EQ Classic video on YouTube from 5-6 years ago. It was, and the person who made the video was talking about Pantheon to someone, and they were saying that they're quite looking forward to alpha soon and all that kind of stuff. And this was like 5 years ago, you know. So as much as people want to say, and the other thing as well is interesting because the developers put a question up recently it was like a really arsey question in my opinion, stupid question. It looks like they'd got upset with someone or people questioning the time it's taking, but it was like, you know, do you want a game to be released with loads of bugs, blah, 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 that get fixed over time, or do you want to wait until the game is ready for, you know? And I'm just thinking, oh, you numpties, what a stupid question. Such a leading one, you know. But at some point, you know, time's got to become an issue. I mean, the thing is that the game still looks a long way off. I mean, 5 years ago, people were talking about being excited about alpha maybe starting soon, and 5 years later, we're still looking at some years, I reckon. Like, it's not going to be a year. It might not even be 2 years. You know, there still seems to be a lot of work. I also wonder if there's some sort of feature creep thing going on, you know, where you're just trying to do too much. I mean, the perception system looks interesting. And I guess the perception system is going to be implemented in all zones. It seems like a pretty key feature that they keep talking about. And there's a lot of writing involved for that kind of thing, for like a quest system. yeah, it still feels like the game is a long way off. But there you go. Who knows? Um, I love the look of it, and I'll play it. But there's another side of me that is also very disappointed that it's not an EQ classic with a bit of polish, you know. But I don't know. Maybe I got the wrong end of the foot from the videos that I watched initially. Maybe that's what it was never going to be. Certainly, the fanboys will tell you that it was never going to be that way, and you know, whatever developers say is, yeah. But there you go. I'm certainly not hating on it because I love the looks of it and I'll play it. But yeah, as I said, I think the other thing as well with development, talking about development, I think this is the other end. I mean, you've heard me criticise strategy avatar development quite a lot. And this is the other end of bad, I think, where occasionally you put a stream out, you know, but no one's actually playing it. There's no one to talk to who's playing it who can give you some decent feedback. You know, they're all puff pieces. When you go to the when you go to fan sites like other YouTube channels, I've tried to watch them, but I just find them unwatchable because they're almost just, they just feel like they're just telling you what they think the developers want them to say and for you to hear. You know, there's no challenge. As I said before, and when I say challenge, I don't mean being rude or spiteful or mean about the game. You know, I just mean asking some questions, you know, to things that are not like just you know, the general stuff that we're fed. You know, just as I said, no meanness, no rudeness, just a bit of challenge as to what's going on in development and where we're going. Yeah, but I think that's about it. I don't really have much else to say. You know, I guess at the end of the day, if they've got more investment coming in, the game will hopefully come out eventually, and then we'll do some videos on it. Yeah, but as I said, I think this is the other end of the. I think now, you know, I mean, I come from old school development. I used to work in the games industry where you would never hear anything about a game basically until it came out. There was no internet. You know, you had magazines that were generally like months behind with regards to where a game was in development. So it's not that I'm sort of the pushy type. I want to know everything, but I think this is the opposite of badness to what Shroud of the Avatar did. Yeah, and it looks like it's probably going to go on for some years. I'm not sure what their stance will be with regards to NDA when proper alpha eventually comes out. I guess it will probably be as strict. So, yeah, there's the wait. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.